The stars shimmered in the void as the Dominion fleet coasted silently through the darkness of interstellar space. Thousands of ships in perfect formation, their hulls glinting like blades in moonlight. At the heart of the armada was the dreadnought, command vessel Atharn Spist, a kilometer-long behemoth bristling with weaponry and sensors. Its command deck flooded in cold blue light. Admiral Jacker, a towering figure with katanus armor and narrow, luminous eyes, stood before a holographic projection of Earth. The planet rotated slowly, seemingly peaceful, naive, unaware. "Look at it," he sneered. "Primitive, helpless, broadcasting open signals into the void, like children shouting into a storm." Around him, his war council of officers murmured in agreement, some clicking their mandibles in amusement. The invasion had been greenlit 3 cycles ago after probes confirmed no planetary shields, no orbital defense network, no gravity-based weaponry, satellites used for weather, mapping, and a crude communications system, a few short-range ballistic weapons, old chemical-based missiles, and fossil fuel engines. To the Dominion, Earth was not a threat. It was a harvest zone, an easy victory. "We will descend within 2 solar rotations," Jacker declared. "Cripple their major power grids, seize their resources, enslave their population, and cleanse resistance within the week." An aide nodded, handing him a data scroll. The plan had been rehearsed countless times. This was not conquest, it was sport. In Earth's orbit, Dominion scouts deployed stealth drones to scan the surface. They observed crowded cities, inefficient transport systems, nations divided by borders and ideology, still warring over territory. The aliens laughed at humanity's inability to unite under one world government. Jacker interpreted it as a cultural weakness. But what the Dominion mistook for chaos was actually deliberate misdirection. Centuries of conflict had forged humans into survivors. Earth had never been defenseless, had simply grown quiet. Meanwhile, far beneath the surface of the planet, thousands of meters below the Arctic ice, a small facility lit by pale LED strips began to hum. Thick steel blast doors sealed shut as consoles flickered to life, screens booting into classified protocols. Inside the chamber, a single technician named Vera sat at a curved console, fingers hovering over a glass interface. Her face was calm, her voice steady as she spoke into a comm channel. "This is Cold Point Base. We have confirmation. Foreign fleet has entered exo-orbit, initiating Protocol Iron Requiem." The AI controlling the facility stirred its core warming. Hidden beneath layers of quantum firewalls and air-gapped systems, the Earth defense grid came online, not all at once, but in stages, as it had been designed. In Washington, D.C., London, Moscow, Beijing, New Delhi, and Johannesburg, encrypted alerts were received in the hands of only 12 individuals. Presidents, generals, and deep state operatives, all part of an alliance that never made headlines. They didn't panic. They didn't scramble jets. They simply nodded grimly and sent the confirmation codes required to escalate Earth's only true defense system all across the world. Civilians remained unaware. Children went to school. Workers sat in traffic. The media reported strange lights seen in the night sky, possibly meteors, according to experts. In truth, those lights were Dominion ships repositioning, preparing for the strike. Admiral Jacker sat in his command chair, arms crossed. "Commence demonstration strike," he ordered. "Let them feel the power of the Dominion." Moments later, an orbital bombardment cannon fired a pulsed plasma lance, which tore through the atmosphere and impacted a stretch of uninhabited desert in northern Africa. A colossal explosion rocked the Earth. The Dominion expected shock, horror, surrender. Instead, their long-range scanners returned something ... odd. The energy signature didn't behave as expected. Instead of radiating outward, it was absorbed. Into the ground, Shakur frowned, analyzing the telemetry. "Strange," he muttered. "Fire a second strike." Another cannon fired, this time at a forest in Siberia. The result was identical. The energy vanished. Suddenly, one of the technicians on the Dominion bridge screamed as their console went dead. One by one, Dominion systems began to blink out. Long-range communications dropped. Tactical maps scrambled. Internal power systems fluctuated. "Report," barked Jacker. "No interference from outside," the technician stammered. "But space-time around the planet is shifting. The magnetic field is inverting, Possible readings don't make sense. Jacques' eyes narrowed. He stood slowly. Is this? Retaliation. And then Earth answered. A sudden pulse, invisible to the naked eye, but powerful enough to be felt, rippled through orbit. Every Dominion ship shuddered. From behind the dark side of the moon, 10 constructs appeared silent, machines with shimmering auras that bent light itself. They bore no flags, no symbols, just sleek, angular frames and energy signatures far beyond anything the Dominion had catalogued. Unidentified vessels inbound, the comms officer reported. They single quotes, not broadcasting anything. No known designs. Jacques stared at them. Are these human-made? The machines moved fast, far faster than the Dominion could track. One of the destroyers exploded without warning. No projectile had been seen, no energy blast detected. It simply ceased to exist, as if wiped from reality. Then, a second, a third, the fleet began to panic. On Earth, Vera watched from the cold point screens, heart steady. Archangel, the sentient defense AI, whispered softly in her earpiece. Engagement has begun. Estimated time to full fleet neutralization, 5 minutes. She nodded once. Humanity had prepared for this moment for decades. Ever since the first alien signal had been intercepted in the 1980s, they had known they were not alone. But they also understood something no galactic power had guessed. Survival didn't come from brute force. It came from preparation, deception, and timing. Back in orbit, the Dominion tried to counterattack. Cannons fired, missiles launched, but none of it mattered. The constructs now identified by Archangel as Cherubim-class interceptors danced through the fire, untouched. They moved like ghosts, slicing ships in half with precision graviton blades, disassembling hulls molecule by molecule, shutting down engines by manipulating localized magnetic fields. It was a slaughter, and Jacques realized too late that Earth had never been defenseless. It had been playing dead bait. He tried to call for retreat, but the words died in his throat as Athorn's fist began to shake violently. A red light flashed across the bridge. A new energy signature had locked onto them. The last thing Jacques saw was a glowing pattern, like wings of fire, folding inward from every direction. Then everything went white. The wreckage of the Dominion fleet drifted in Earth's upper orbit like silent tombstones. Where there had once been rows of precision-engineered warships, now there were only glowing fragments. Vapor trails, and the hollow remnants of arrogance. The sky had returned to calm. The stars, once again twinkling above a planet that tonned the surface, remained blissfully unaware. But below that surface, deep in the hidden nerve centers of Earth's secret infrastructure, the war room buzzed. With controlled precision, no celebration, no panic, just quiet acknowledgement. The enemy had made their first mistake. They had assumed Earth was vulnerable. Inside Cold Point Base, Vera monitored the orbital debris field from her console. Streams of real-time data flowed. Across her screen, particle dispersal rates, energy residue analysis, gravitic shear distortion, all clean, no signs of survivors. Archangel's voice soothing and clinicut through her earpiece again. 93% of enemy combatants neutralized in 4.58 minutes. 7% escaped initial impact vector, tracking sublight movement. Authorization to intercept. She tapped a single key. Intercept authorized. 0 survivors. Thousands of kilometers above, one of the few remaining Dominion frigates attempted to flee, engines blazing at full sublight burn. Its crew, terrified and disoriented, attempted to establish any connection with their home systems. All comms were blocked. They tried to jump into hyperspace, but found their warp cores unresponsive. What they didn't realize was that space itself around Earth had been folded, locked into a localized bubble of manipulated gravitational fabric. No one in, no one out. Earth had sealed the battlefield from behind the fleeing vessel. A Cherubim-class construct unfolded itself like an origami nightmare from the stars. Without a sound, it accelerated, moved beside the frigate, and extended a long blade-like limb, composed of pure graviton resonance. With a graceful motion, it sliced the ship from bow to stern. There was no explosion, just silence and then disintegration. Dust joined the orbital graveyard in the Dominion's nearest forward command post. Located on the moon Europa, panic had set in. The outpost was only meant to act as a refueling station, its presence hidden even from Earth's astronomers. The technicians stationed there watched the fleet vanish from their tactical displays in utter horror. Commander Vrix, a lower-tier strategist, stood frozen as the reports came in. 90 ships gone, flagship obliterated, no communication. All this within 5 minutes. This cannot be real, he muttered. They were primitives. No, whispered one of the engineers, his mandibles quivering. They were pretending. In the shadows of Earth's defense architecture, other hidden programs activated. Across the planet, in mountainous bunkers, underwater facilities, and orbital blind spots, secondary systems began to stir. Project Valkyrie, Protocol Zephyr, Operation False Star, all prepared years ago. For the moment when deception would be dropped and revelation would begin. But for now, Earth's leaders chose silence. The world governments convened in a secret virtual session, linked through quantum relays. 12 leaders from across geopolitical divides, military minds, scientists, and diplomats. A holographic table displayed the wreckage still falling through orbit. We agree to maintain cover, asked General Lung from Singapore. Yes, President Moyle of South Africa nodded. Publicly, this was an atmospheric anomaly. No news, broadcasts, no leaks. We remain quiet. The Russian representative, a woman named Dmitrieva, leaned forward. We can't hide this forever. No, said the American director, but we don't need forever. Just long enough for the galaxy to understand that Earth isn't prey, it's a trap. Across the galaxy, reactions rippled through the stars. The Dominion's nearest colonies sent encrypted probes toward Earth, hoping to gather information about the sudden blackout of their main fleet. The probes never returned. One simply disintegrated upon breaching the exosphere. Another was redirected, its navigation subtly hacked and pointed toward the sun. The third was captured and reprogrammed, returned to Dominion, space with a message embedded in its core. It was a single image, the Earth, perfectly calm, with the faint silhouette of a cherubim construct orbiting behind it like a guardian angel. Made of black steel dot back on Earth. Archangel recalibrated. Dominion reinforcements estimated within 30 solar days. It reported to Vera. Probability of preemptive strike by additional alien factions rising. Global defense posture maintained at level black. Good, Vera replied. Let them come. Let them all come. The illusion of Earth's backwardness had been carefully crafted. Generations of disinformation, false signals, staged technological setbacks, and broadcast clutter had kept the world looking weak to any outside observers. Public space programs were always behind schedule. Power systems were inefficient on the surface. Satellites used outdated technology. But deep underground, the reality was different. Earth had not simply advanced, it had evolved quietly. It had watched the stars, read the alien transmissions, studied the physics of the galaxy, and it had prepared it, had never wanted to conquer it, just refused to kneel on the streets of Earth's cities. People continued their lives, unaware that an alien fleet had just been eradicated in the skies above. A few amateur astronomers noted strange anomalous flashes, disappearances, pulses of light, but their posts were quickly flagged and buried under an avalanche of misinformation. The digital noise of the world drowned out the truth. One man in Tokyo posted a video of a glowing object streaking across the sky. Within minutes, the footage was debunked as a meteor trail from a recent shower. In Mexico City, a child pointed to the sky, asking her mother what the big shiny knife was that floated near the moon. Her mother laughed and told her it was just a dream. But in certain circles, in deep forums, darknet files, and encrypted chat rooms, the rumors spread. Theories emerged. Some guessed correctly that humanity had tricked the stars. Others were convinced it was divine intervention. A few whispered that Earth had been protected all along by a force too ancient to understand. No one had the full picture. No one but 12 people and an artificial mind named Archangel. On Europa, Commander Vrix drafted his final message to Dominion High Command. He didn't ask for reinforcements. He didn't lie. He simply wrote, "We have miscalculated. Earth is not a target. Earth is a weapon." And far away, in the Dominion's core worlds, The High Council sat in stunned silence as the probe returned with its image. Earth, the construct behind it, and a warning in a language that wasn't theirs. 4. Words, you were never invited. In the aftermath of the Dominion's defeat, Earth remained eerily silent. No diplomatic channels were opened. No retaliatory threats were made. No declarations of war issued. It was this silence that unnerved the galaxy most. The Dominion had faced rebellion before mutinous planets, insurgent colonies, species emboldened by desperation, but none had ever annihilated an entire assault fleet in less than 5 minutes. And none had done it without so much as a warning. Council convened in the capital world of Verthune Prime, beneath the endless crystal domes that arched over the Imperial Chamber. There, Chancellor Razek, his triple-jointed limbs twitching with agitation, reviewed the incoming fragments of data-scattered telemetry, distorted sensor logs, and the now infamous image of Earth with the black-winged silhouette of a cherubim interceptor in orbit. It cannot be true, one counselor hissed. The humans are primitives. Their signals are centuries behind galactic standards. Chancellor Razek stared at the projection, silent. And yet, our ships are gone. Back on Earth, beneath the Greenland ice sheet. Archangel's core processed terabytes of surveillance from Dominion colonies. While the galaxy debated Earth's place in the Great Hierarchy, Archangel had already mapped their political alliances, fleet deployments, vulnerabilities, and command hierarchies. It wasn't just a defense system, it was a machine of strategy. Decades ahead in its simulation of interstellar conflict, inside Cold Point Base, Vera sat beside Dr. Elias Gant, the project's original architect. He was older now, his once dark beard streaked with silver, but his eyes burned with clarity. They watched as simulation screens showed every possible Dominion response from diplomatic outreach to full-scale retaliation. The outcomes were always the same: defeat. "They'll come again," Vera said quietly. Gant nodded. "Of course, but not with fleets. Not yet. They'll try infiltration next. Sabotage. Psychological warfare. And when that fails..." Gant glanced toward the reinforced blast door that led to the lower chamber, where the remaining Cherubim-class constructs lay dormant. "Then they'll send everything. And that's when we stop hiding." The Cherubim weren't the only weapons Earth had built in secret. The defense grid that protected the planet's orbit was merely the first layer. Below it were things never tested, never revealed technologies based not on brute strength, but on manipulation of quantum fields, space-time disruption, and directed entropy. Even Archangel itself, as powerful as it was only the voice of something deeper, something older, in a vault located under the Mariana Trench, where the pressure would crush even the sturdiest of alien hulls, lay the first recovered alien artifact and object discovered in 1972 by a deep-sea submersible. From that relic, Earth had begun its quiet evolution. Governments pretended to squabble over borders, religions, and politics while diverting massive resources to a global shadow alliance. Civilizations don't broadcast their deadliest secrets, and Earth had learned that lesson early back in space. More Dominion probes tried to scan Earth. They were met not with weapons, but with static, perfectly engineered digital noise, bouncing signals and false echoes that made Earth appear unchanged. The illusion held. Even advanced sensor sweeps revealed only old satellites, barely functioning ISS modules, and decaying orbital junk. But behind that camouflage, the Cherubim still moved undetectable, folded into localized microdimensions, ready to strike at any sign of breach. 3 weeks after the failed invasion, a disguised civilian freighter bearing false registry codes entered the edge of the Sol system. Its crew consisted of Dominion operatives, telepathic infiltrators, known for dismantling planetary resistance through sabotage. As the freighter passed Mars, it received a false response from an Earth trade relay station, giving it clearance. To approach, they never made it past the asteroid belt. A single, shimmering distortion appeared alongside the freighter, silent, smooth, and seamless. The construct didn't fire. It didn't need to. Space bent around the freighter, compressing into a singularity for less than a nanosecond. When it returned to normal, the ship and its crew no longer existed in any measurable form. No radiation, no explosion, just absence, and still Earth said nothing. On the civilian front, governments carefully rolled out plausible cover stories. Reports of an unexplained meteor swarm near the South Atlantic were circulated, attributed to a freak orbital event. Social media was flooded with AI-generated distractions, celebrity scandals, fake alien conspiracies, doctored space photos. The truth was buried under so much noise that even the curious eventually lost interest. Only a select few scientists, defense analysts, and a small number of world leaders understood the stakes. Humanity had stepped onto the galactic stage, not as students, not as explorers, but as a riddle. A species that had hidden in plain sight let itself be underestimated, and when tested, responded with divine fury. On the far side of the moon, Earth's primary orbital station, Aegis cloaked in optical invisibility. From here, Archangel coordinated the planet's layered defenses. Orbital arrays disguised as civilian satellites, particle manipulation systems embedded inside the crust, and subquantum communication relays positioned at key gravitational nodes. Throughout the solar system, inside Aegis Prime, Captain Layla Reese, commander of orbital defense operations, paced slowly through the operations deck. Around her, analysts monitored the movement of distant fleets, traced Dominion chatter, and projected future threat vectors. "Status of our cloaking field?" she asked. "Stable," replied her second-in-command. "False Earth signature holding. Civilian satellite network still reflecting old tech profile. No breaches." Layla nodded. "What's the response from Vrathu?" "They're stalling. We've intercepted internal comms. They're panicked. They still think we're only defending." Layla smirked. "Let them think that, until we decide otherwise." Below, in the lower hangars, the remaining cherubim rested. Each was different-shaped, like angelic titans, others like geometric nightmares. They were not piloted, they were bonded, linked not through machines but through shared cognitive resonance with their human hosts, individuals selected. From birth, raised in isolation, trained to interface with weapons no species should ever have touched. Vera was one of them. She didn't wear a uniform, she didn't carry a weapon, but she could destroy a fleet with a thought, and she wasn't the only one in a training chamber under Cold Point. She stood before a wall of cold steel, staring at her reflection. Behind her, Archangel spoke. "The Dominion is consolidating forces. Reinforcements expected within 2 months. Estimated fleet strength 10 times larger." Vera didn't flinch. "Let them come." Archangel paused. "Shall we begin preemptive simulations?" "No," she said softly. "Not yet." "Why?" She turned eyes cold and clear. "Because I want them to believe they still have a chance." The stars shimmered above Earth, oblivious to the tension radiating from just beyond their reach. Far out in the void, at the edge of the Kuiper Belt, space began to ripple. The Dominion had returned not with a scout fleet, but with a war armada, 500 ships strong, including dreadnoughts, cruisers, carriers, and support vessels, every one of them armed to the teeth, loaded with troops, AI command units, and weaponry designed to crack continental crusts. The armada approached with coordinated silence, each vessel broadcasting no signal, no challenge. The Dominion had learned they came not to mock, not to taunt, they came to eliminate. Inside Aegis Prime, Captain Layla Reese stood in the central command dome, watching as the red dots filled the holographic projection of the outer system. "They brought everything," she murmured. Archangel's voice responded calmly, confirmed. "Mass readings indicate a full high-tier military response. Projections suggest simultaneous orbital siege and surface penetration attempt on Earth. Protocol Azrael activated across hundreds of hidden defense facilities. Automated systems woke from stasis. Civilian infrastructure remained untouched, the world below still unaware, but deep under oceans, buried in mountains and locked in orbit. The planet's true defenses unfurled back within the Dominion. Flagship Vengeance of Rathunhai Admiral Shechtel stood atop a command dais, surrounded by tactical officers and dreadnought commanders. Unlike his predecessor, Shechtel held no illusions of Earth's weakness. He had studied the obliteration of the First Fleet, reviewed the scant sensor data, and read every intercepted whisper. He had come not to conquer, but to crush. "Begin deployment," he ordered. "All vessels, planetary encirclement. Leave no escape vector." The Armada obeyed. Within minutes, ships encircled Earth like a tightening noose. Plasma batteries charged, bombardment trajectories aligned, Dozens of dropships began pre-jump calibrations, preparing to storm the surface. But not one of them noticed that space itself around Earth was no longer behaving naturally. The first warning came too late. A dreadnought on the outer edge of the fleet simply blinked out of existence. No explosion, no radiation, just gone. Crew lost. Matter unraveled. Admiral Schechtel spun toward the sensor officer report. Before the officer could respond, another ship vanished, this time accompanied by a blinding white flash and microsingularity had formed directly within its core. Then came a soundless pulse-gravitic tremors, rippled outward, disrupting subspace comms. The fleet staggered. "They're here," whispered one of the Dominion captains. "The constructs, from Earth's orbit, 10 Cherubim-class interceptors decloaked. Their forms were like myths, made real impossibly elegant. Black as void, wreathed in shimmering halos of light-warping energy. They moved with deliberate grace, like celestial predators, at minute 1. 30% of the Dominion fleet was gone. The Cherubim didn't fire weapons in any conventional sense. They manipulated the fabric of space. One ship was compressed into a disk no thicker than a plate. Another was folded into its own engine and ejected across the system. Energy beams meant to melt cities passed through the constructs, like light through smoke. They were untouchable. At minute 2, the Dominion scrambled fighters. Swarms of agile attack ships launched from carriers, buzzing around the Cherubim like hornets. The interceptors responded by duplicating their signal footprints, creating phantoms that confused enemy targeting systems. Then came the harvest. Razor-thin beams of stabilized quantum entropy sliced through hundreds of ships in synchronized sweeps. Whole squadrons were erased. At minute 3, command vessels tried to flee. Warp drives activated. Emergency hyperspace jumps were calculated. But the space around Earth had been locked-folded into a controlled singularity zone, precisely regulated. By Earth's core defense grid, no one could enter. No one could leave. A single carrier managed to launch escape pods. The pods made it approximately 12 kilometers before disassembling mid-flight. Their occupants atomized by microgravitational shears, on the ground. Vera stood atop the control deck in Cold Point Base, watching it all unfold in silence. Around her support staff whispered telemetry updates with grim composure. Minute 4, Archangel intoned, 91% enemy fleet neutralized. Remaining units attempting mass retreat. "Let them," Vera said. But there was no escape. The last of the Dominion ships regrouped near the edge of the artificial spacelock. A single cruiser sent a final desperate transmission, requesting mercy. "Stand down" order issued. "We surrender." It was received and ignored. The closest Cherubim construct slowly turned, its form flickering with translucent wings of refracted light. It approached the cruiser without sound, drifted beside it, and extended an arm. The air around the ship shimmered, then compressed into a pinpoint. With a final burst of light, the ship was gone. At minute 5, there was silence. Nothing remained above Earth but drifting slag, atomized trails of hull plating, and a quiet humming barrier of stabilized gravitic folds that gently dispersed. The dust of what had once been the pride of the Dominion military. Inside Aegis Prime, Captain Reese lowered her head. "Casualties? None," replied Archangel. "Total human losses, 0. Enemy fleet, neutralized. Total elapsed time, 5 minutes, 2 seconds. On Earth, no alarms rang. No alerts blared. Civilization continued without pause. Farmers tended their crops. Children played in schoolyards. Cities hummed with electricity and traffic. The sky, so recently host to a massacre, now shone clear. The Global Shadow Council convened once more, this time with a single question. Do we respond? General Leung spoke first. They'll send more, and if not them, then someone else. President Moyle nodded. Then we continue the illusion. Let them believe this was a fluke. What if they realize it wasn't? Asked DMITRIEVA. Appearing via secure quantum link, smiled faintly. Then we give them a choice. Walk away or vanish. And far from Earth, deep in the Dominion's core territory, the silence became terror. News of the Second Fleet's fate spread like wildfire. Species once subjugated now whispered of rebellion. Colonies questioned the Dominion's strength. One by one, alliances wavered. In the palace of the High Chancellor, no orders were given. There was only a screen. On it, a live feed relayed by a final Dominion satellite captured Earth, pristine and untouched, and orbiting behind it. The last surviving image of a cherubim construct its wings extended as if inviting the galaxy forward. The galactic community had always known Earth. It was the strange little blue world on the outer spiral arm. Noisy and primitive, pulsing with chaotic radio chatter and riddled with atmospheric pollution. For centuries, it had been dismissed. Class C civilization not worthy of first contact. Some species watched with passing curiosity, amused by its wars and superstitions. Others catalogued it like an oddity in a cosmic museum. But no one feared it. No one respected it until now. Dominions to fleets vast, terrifying symbols of imperial might had been obliterated, not driven back, not repelled, erased, in 10 minutes of total combat. And Earth had said nothing. No demands, no ultimatum, no claim of victory. It had not spoken a single word. That silence echoed louder than any war cry on Vrathun Prime. Chancellor Razik sat alone in the great chamber, staring at the darkened holographic table. Around him, the seats of his war council sat empty, their former occupants dead, executed, or missing. Political factions fractured. Regional governors abandoned the core worlds. Even the Dominions feared planetary enforcers had begun defecting. A power that had reigned for 1,000 years now trembled because of one planet that refused to explain itself. Contact Earth. He finally croaked. Open a channel. Offer peace. Surrender. Anything. But there was no answer, because Earth was no longer listening. Across the stars, rebel factions, once terrified of Dominion, reprisal rose up in unison. On the mining world of Kelrosnine, slaves overthrew their masters, citing Earth's judgment as their inspiration. On the academic station at Kadith Prime, philosophers debated the concept of implied omnipotence, the theory that Earth's silence was itself a strategy, forcing fear to grow in the void where communication should have been, and deep within the Orion Nebula. A coalition of alien races once hiding from the Dominion gathered in secret. Among them were warriors, engineers, and even diplomats. They didn't come to conquer Earth, they came to understand it. They called it by a new name, now not Earth or Terra, but the sleeping blade on Earth beneath the frozen wastelands of Antarctica. The final session of the Global Defense Council was underway. The Great Deception, they knew, had run its Of course, the illusion of weakness had served them well, but too many eyes now turned toward their world. Archangel's predictive simulations showed an exponential spike in external focus. The cloak of invisibility was thinning. "We cannot stay hidden much longer," said President Moyel. "Our enemies are not the only ones watching. Our allies are beginning to wonder." "There are no allies," General Lung said coldly. "Only those who haven't attacked yet." Dr. Elias Gant leaned forward, his hands clasped tightly. "Perhaps it's time we choose our own narrative. Instead of hiding, we step forward." Vera sat silently at the end of the table. She had changed her bond with the cherubim-class construct known as Azrael, had transformed her in subtle ways. Her presence felt larger now, as if she existed half a step out of time. When she finally spoke, everyone listened. If we step forward, it must not be as rulers, nor as saviors. It must be as a warning. The room fell silent. "We tell them?" asked a counselor from Argentina. "What do we say when they ask who we are?" Vera looked upward, eyes distant, as if hearing something beyond the room. When she spoke again, her voice echoed slightly, not loud, but layered, almost inhuman. "We tell them nothing. We let them keep asking." Far above the planet, the 10 cherubim interceptors re-entered high orbit, forming a wide circle that extended from the thermosphere to the edge of lunar space. Each construct faced outward, away from Earth, as if daring the universe to try again. Within each, their bonded human operators entered deep cognitive sync, no longer merely pilots, but living command nodes of a defense network more powerful than any single weapon. Archangel, now fully integrated into Earth's quantum lattice, expanded its reach, not as a conqueror, but as a sentinel. It infiltrated the communication webs of distant systems, not to control, but to listen. Every word spoken about Earth, every whispered fear, every desperate plan. Earth heard them all, and secret messages began to circulate among the stars' warnings, encoded in symbols, forbidden data fragments showing the last moments of the Dominion fleets. Black market traders whispered of ships that vanished into thin air, of constructs shaped like angels and demons, of a planet that waited silently, weaponized not by technology alone, but by human will. A will that did not break, a will that did not break, a will that did not forget. And always the same question: why is Earth so quiet? Back in Cold Point Base, Vera walked alone into the heart of the command vault. She approached Azrael, her bonded cherubim, and placed her hand against its glowing obsidian surface. The construct responded with a low hum, resonating with her thoughts. "Will they come again?" she asked. Archangel responded through the air, no longer needing speakers. Eventually, "Are we ready?" "Yes, we always were." She nodded. "Then let them come. Let them test the gates again." Outside, the world turned on, blissfully unaware. Cities grew, children played, art was made, music filled the skies. Earth was, to most of its people, a place of dreams, of struggle, of growth, a legend, a nightmare, not because of what it had done, but because of what it might do in the deep void. In places where light from Earth hadn't even reached, whispers echoed in ancient languages. Across hive minds and telepathic links, over crystalline comes and biological relays. For words, passed like ghost stories through the stars. Don't go near Earth.